Stephanie here from Classy Lady Yarnworks, bringing you a tutorial today on Intarsia crochet and how to do color work and color changes in Intarsia. So I have gotten started here with a chain of 21 to be able to do my first row of 20 on this graph. I'm actually going to adjust this for myself really quick because it's going to bug me. I just finished a tutorial on how to read graphs, and so I was marking on this and I just realized that I didn't erase it, so sorry. Alright, so here's what's going to happen. I'm going to start my first row in single crochet. That's a solid row, so I'm doing 20 single crochets here, and I'll speed this up real fast and get to the good stuff. Okay, so I have finished my first row, this solid row of 20 in purple, and I've chained one, so I'm going to turn and I'm going to work row 2. Alright, so I have 2 in purple here. I'm going to go 1 stitch and 2, but rather than continue on and finish off that stitch, this is where I'm going to change colors. Now on these rows, on even rows, I'm working the wrong side. So this matters a lot in Intarsia, making sure that you pull the yarn towards whichever side is the wrong side. So if I was working an odd row, I would want to move this to the back. But I'm working an even row, so I'm going to move this towards me, because I'm looking at the wrong side of the piece. In Intarsia, you don't carry the yarn within the stitches, you're carrying it along the back side. So it's going to matter a lot, and you'll see why here in a few minutes, where that yarn lands. So to finish out this stitch, I'm going to pull in my second color. And then same as a moment ago, I'm going to make sure I pull this towards myself so it's on the wrong side. And then I'm going to work my 1 in pink. Since it's just 1 stitch, I'm going to stop and go ahead and switch to that purple. I use my thumb and this finger a lot back here to pinch the things as I work on them. So I'm switching back after 1, and then I have 3. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3. Again, I'm not going to finish that. I'm going to stop. I'm going to pull this yarn towards me to the wrong side, and then I'm going to pick back up my other color. So I'm just going to pull that yarn across, and I'm going to pick it back up right here. Now, the hardest part about doing this is always just kind of trying to keep your tension from getting too tight as you pull those. They're called floats. As you pull your floats across the back, you just have to be sure you don't pull them too tight, and that's something that really just takes practice, and you'll get the hang of it over time. So just practice it, and then you'll get that tension. That's the hardest part. Yeah. Anyway, so we're switching back because we had 1 in pink. Switching back to purple. Get myself untangled here. Okay, well, maybe not. There we go. Okay, so I've switched back to purple, and I've got 2 stitches. Next, 1 and 2. But I'm going to leave it open. I'm pulling in the pink. Pull that purple towards me. Stitch in that pink. So now I've got 5 in pink, and I'm going to show you what to do on longer stretches, so that your back doesn't get too messy. So I'm going to do 1, 2, and then to keep this float from getting really long, so if I could just continued on and then changed back to the purple, I'd have this long bit that's not secured. And so to keep the back of your piece from getting too messy, every once in a while you want to pick up that color. So I'm gonna pull it in front right here before I insert my hook. And then I'm gonna insert my hook and do the stitch as normal. So now I've trapped that, so I don't just have this big floating piece in the back. And then I'm gonna move it out of the way, and I'm gonna continue. This is number 4 and number 5. I'm gonna pull this back again, switch to my new color. I have 2 in this, so 1 and 2. Pull this towards me again, towards the wrong side. Pick up that pink. I've got 2 in pink, 1. Okay, so I was supposed to have 2 there and I only did 1. Let me go back and do this. So there we go. Sorry. All right, we got 1 and 2. I'm gonna switch to that purple and then 1 and 2. Okay, there we go. That's right. I'm gonna go ahead and chain so I can turn. And now I can just kind of stop and look and see, okay, this looks right. Yeah, cool. All right, so now I'm moving on to row 3 here. And I'm going to kind of pull my yarn out here a little bit. I'll show you in a minute how I like to untwist my yarn when it gets a little wonky. So now I have 8 in purple before my next change. I'm gonna go ahead and do that really quick. And then you can see back here, I'm coming back across where I last did that bit of pink. So what I want to do is pick that up, and just like we did earlier with those floats, I want to pick that up in a second so that it doesn't get too long. So I've gone about 3 or 4 stitches. I'm going to go ahead and come through here, and then I'm going to pick up that pink and trap it and just keep going. So I'm on 6, 7, oh, hold on, still got that trapped in there. There we go. 7 and number 8. Okay, so now this time I'm keeping that yarn to the back. It's a lot easier when the back is facing away from you. It just kind of naturally stays back there. But when you're working with wrong side facing, you have to be a little more diligent about making sure your yarn is in the right place. So I've got 1, and then I'm switching back to purple. 2, 3, and 4. And again, all the time, just making sure when you pull those new colors in that you just don't pull the yarn too tight. Just make it a conscious thing that you're not pulling that yarn too tight. And getting a hang of doing the color changes and where to put your finger and stuff like that, it just comes with practice. So this is something that you're just going to want to practice over and over again. I like to recommend doing some vertical stripes so that you can just keep doing those color changes over and over again, back and forth, until you get the hang of doing the switch and where to put your fingers and how to hold the yarn the way that works best for you. So I'm going to finish out these last 2. Go ahead and chain for my next row, and then I'm going to show you, this is the way that I like, sorry, excuse me, I'm rocking my table around a little bit. This is how I like to undo my yarn, my twisty yarn. So my pieces have kind of twisted up because I've been going back and forth, which actually I think I untwisted them quite a bit naturally as I worked in the opposite direction. All I do when my yarn starts to get twisted is when I get to a new row, I kind of pull it up. I take my 2 colors that I'm working with and then I just pull them apart, and normally that piece will twist in a circle and just undo you know, the twistiness. I naturally untwisted it, and I didn't think about it until right now. I naturally untwisted it as I was working in the opposite direction. But yes, so now let me show you on the back of here what Intarsia looks like. This is how Intarsia is going to look on the back side. You're just going to have all of these long bits. So this works best when you're working with something that has a wrong side, and there's not going to be any issue with snagging those floats along the back side. I prefer this personally when I do my wall tapestries and stuff like that. This is my default method, because when you do tapestry style, you're carrying the yarn inside the stitches, and a lot of times it just peeks through a little bit. And it's really hard to completely avoid having some of the opposite color peek through. So, and I'll show you a comparison at the end of this video between Intarsia and tapestry styles. But this is Intarsia, and this is how you can recognize what it looks like. Again, good for things that have a wrong side that are not going to really, there's going to be no effect on usability with these floats hanging in the background. So I like to use them on things like maybe a pillow that I'm going to be stuffing. You know, nobody's ever going to touch those floats on the backside. A wall hanging, that's something that's not going to be messed with. Those floats in the back aren't going to cause a problem. So yeah, that is what Intarsia looks like. If you have any questions, just drop them in the comments below. I will be happy to help you and answer any questions that you have. If you like this video, I hope that you'll hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I put out tutorials like this for color work. I'll be doing more of them, especially I do stitch tutorials and yarn reviews, and I do general tips and tricks just to help you improve your crochet life. I am a crochet designer first and foremost. I like to put swear words and expletives on crochet pieces, so if that's something that interests you, you can check out all my patterns in the description below this video. Drop me a comment down below and let me know which version of colorwork you like best. Do you like tapestry? Do you prefer Intarsia? Or are you just starting out and you don't know yet? Thanks so much for watching. Keep doing you, and I will catch you next time. Okay, this is a side-by-side comparison of the two methods, tapestry and Intarsia. So on the front side, the right side of the piece, there's not a ton of difference, but if you look closely, I'm gonna grab my pencil here. If you look closely, this one has a little bit more of that opposite color showing through than this one does. And I chose to do something in just single lines, single rows and single columns, because I think it's important to show the difference between the details in the two different methods. So you can see that the tapestry method just has a little bit more lines kind of coming through where Intarsia does not. But you can see here, if you're working in these, this is a 2-column section. It doesn't make as big of a difference if you're not working on a something with more minute detail. It doesn't make as big of a difference. It's pretty easy still to see the shape here of the exclamation point. But you can see there are nuances, okay? So like in Intarsia here, this piece has a little bit less definition between the bottom of the exclamation point and the top. You don't get as much of the purple coming through as you do right here, which I have another video that I'll link. I'll link it right up here, that shows you how I like to clean up pieces like this where I have those kind of little weird spots. Anytime you do color work, it's never going to be perfect. There's always going to be little bits of weirdness. It's just the nature of it. But overall, for a finished piece, I always prefer Intarsia. I find Intarsia easier to work in general. But the downside of Intarsia is its backside. So here you can see we don't have, this is Intarsia, this is Tapestry. We have all of these carried yarn on Intarsia, where we don't have that in Tapestry because we carried the non-working yarn throughout the whole piece. So that's the downside of Intarsia. It turns out a better, cleaner color work in general, but you do have to bear in mind that you're going to have these pieces back here. So I may have mentioned this earlier, but basically if you're working something that has a wrong side that's not going to be touched a lot, Intarsia is really great for that. If you're working something that you know, let's say for instance a bag where you're going to be reaching your hand into it, and you're not necessarily going to want to line it with fabric or something like that, then a work like Tapestry is going to be superior. So they each have their benefits, their pros, and their cons. Overall, though, personally, I prefer Intarsia as much as I possibly can manage it. Let me know which method that you prefer if you have a preference. But yeah, that's a comparison side by side of the two different ways.